I was raised under the religion of the Angel of Stars. Many people like to make jokes about secret societies, but let me ask you something. Have you ever heard of the Angel of Stars? It began in 1925. A group of Christian bankers decided to bring to light that they had an experience. 10 men and their families with $700 million between them announced that they were visited by an angel. This angel's name was Earthus. He held a flaming sword along with a star in his other hand. Earthus supposedly told these bankers that the end of the world was coming soon, so they needed to transcend Christianity. But in reality, these bankers were trying to make a quick buck, and many people saw that. They were shunned until 1943 at the height of World War II. These bankers started to preach that they were right. This war was part of their prophecy. They said that their critics helped cause this war. And guess what? They gained 20,000 members from 1943 to 1946. Around the end of 1945, one of the bankers, Jonathan Parson, became the head of AOS. During this time, they acted as a normal religion. Besides the original bankers and a couple of CEOs, the religion was comprised mostly of middle-class Americans. But once World War II ended, 12 high-ranking politicians joined AOS. Most likely they joined because Parson was blaming them for denying them a few years earlier. This is when AOS became a secret. They used to have their own logo, a cross in front of a star, but wanted to protect their high-profile members. They changed it. They began masquerading as a Christian organization, and they act like that today. To see a church with this logo, a cross with a thorn crown on top, the circles drawn into the rest of the ends, it is an AOS church. By 1950, AOS shredded their middle-class past. While the relatives of the original 20,000 normal members belonged, AOS was now actively going after politicians, scientists, CEOs, and foreign leaders. On June 3, 1952, the 19-year-old daughter of the mayor of Syracuse found out that her father was a member of AOS and began discussing it with her friends. But on that day, she was killed in a botched robbery of her apartment. But she wasn't just killed, she was absolutely mutilated. Her entrails strung about like party reins. I'm guessing that you know that this murder was carried out by AOS. You're right. She was killed by a branch member known as Guardians. Former military men now used as assassins. Well, why was her murder so harsh? Well, it was a message to her father for not reprimanding her after they told him to. Jonathan Parson died in October 1952. His oldest son, Gary, immediately took up the mantle of Master, the official title that his father held. Only 3 weeks after taking up the mantle, Gary was faced with the 1952 presidential election. I will finally name a member. Eisenhower's election manager was a member, so him becoming president was of the highest importance. AOS sent about 7,000 guardians to 7,000 different voting stations. It is very clear to me that these guardians strong-armed probably hundreds of thousands of voters into voting for Eisenhower. Hell, during the election, a police officer in Louisiana tried to arrest a man for harassing voters. This man got away, but 10 hours later, this same officer was found dead in his home, along with his family, all strangled. But let me take a break from their outside dealings and I'll reveal the horrifying insider secrets. When anyone becomes a member of the AOS, they must give up all their personal information. They have to tell them all of their financial info, their family's financial info, health records, family addresses, etc. If they go against the church, all info will be used against them. Oh, you want to call us a cult? We'll bankrupt your whole entire family. I have found 7 instances of that happening. So what exactly does AOS teach? In church, they mostly talk about angels. Basically, they have a Bible, but all of the stories are based in heaven. I can give examples if you want, but their main idea? We are here to make this earth ideal for Christ and his warrior angels once the end comes. This sentence is said by everyone in the church at the beginning and end of each sermon. Now let's talk about the JFK assassination. I would like to start off by saying that I do not even know if AOS was involved, but I will give you this. Kennedy denied any help from the AOS during his campaign. The AOS elders went into lockdown 12 hours before anyone found out about the missiles in Cuba, and LBJ was a goddamn member. So I'm not saying that they were involved, but those are the facts. Let's talk about Vietnam. In 1968, a platoon which included Kenneth Harmon, Robert Peck, and Vince Harrison, all relatives of AOS elders, committed horrific war crimes. In 1971, 6 official reports were made about these 3 men. One report said that they personally saw these 3 men murder and rape 30 Vietnamese civilians, non-combatants. Where did these reports go? Right in the damn trash. By 1979, AOS allegedly had 300,000 members. 65% of members had over $8 million a year. 35% of members were American and foreign politicians. In 1982, an AOS member of British Parliament was personally reprimanded by Gary Parson. This man had nearly compromised his secret membership. So what was his punishment? 25 minutes in a locked room with Gary, 2 thorny whips, and 2 doctors. For the rest of his life, that man had become popular for never letting anybody see him with his shirt off, including his wife. 1985, Queens, New York. A crack dealer by the name of Deshaun Burfani enters an AOS church with the intent of robbing the members. Officially, no police were called, and Deshaun was never heard of again. But what really happened? They tore him to shreds, literally. Deshaun was disarmed within seconds after he threatened the sermon. Once they had him on the ground, the children were brought back in the back with a few den parents. Once all children were out of the room, 30 AOS members held Deshaun against one of the pews. The church members were furious. They were offended that this lower-class scum thought that he could harm them. They considered themselves superhumans. As they held him, Deshaun began begging them to call the police so he could be arrested. Yes, a black man in 1985 in New York City was begging to see the New York Police Department. After a few minutes of degrading the man, the members attacked. Using their bare hands and objects around the room, they destroyed this man. They acted like a pack of serial killers, savoring every time they ripped into this poor man's flesh. They believed themselves to be so elite that when a lesser challenged them, they slaughtered them. They believed themselves to be so elite that when a lesser challenged them, they slaughtered him. From 1986 to 1998, the files get extremely sparse, which worries me more than anything. I'll try harder to find them because if I can find all of this stuff, what is so bad that they're taking extra precaution to hide it? But I was born in 1996, and I was immediately brought into the AOS lifestyle. It is a very sexist organization, so I had a much easier childhood than my older sister. While my uncle bought out a porn actress to be my first, my sister was beaten by 3 guardians after my father found out that she wasn't a virgin. School was also very different. I went to a school in DC, sharing classrooms with the children of billionaires, but I was so brainwashed that I scoffed at their net worth, knowing that I could have their families killed if I didn't like them. While I was going to school, AOS were thriving. While the churches were still there, the religious aspect took a back seat, but they still to this day hope that the world ends so they can see their gods. Once 9/11 happened, AOS indoctrinated the CEOs of 3 of the biggest arm dealers in the world. What happens when you own a weapons company and the government that is buying their weapons? Fucking profit. The last huge thing that I've discovered in 2009. Gary Pearson himself bought a nuclear warhead. Guys, cross my heart and hope to die. He may not have the full missile, but in his compound, which may or may not be in Clearwater, Florida, sits a fucking nuclear warhead. Who did they buy it from? I don't know. How do I know all this? My name is Victor Parson. Gary Parson is my grandfather. I discovered over 3,000 pages of dirt on my family and AOS. I don't even think that being the legacy will help me as soon as I submit. So please, spread the word.